So, Reedy, we're gonna go with part two here because unfortunately we went a little bit past your schedule last time, and we had to cut the call short. And if viewers notice there's a difference in audio, that's only because Paul's driving to a match right now. Is that correct, Reedy?
I'm training with the JTech guys at Foul Ball Precision in Ninica, Oklahoma. Some of my favourite areas to shoot.
Oh, you going to see Watsy and Tate and stuff like that?
I'm training with Justin Watts, Tate, Clay Blackketter, and I think Austin Orgain. Although none of that's official, that's who I think I'm going to train with.
I think you're 100% right. I was only talking with a buddy of mine, Russell Faith from Brick Shithouse Stocks, and we were talking. That's one of the courses that I want to do is the with the JTech boys. I've shot at foul ball with Russell, and it's a damn nice range. So, what are you just brushing up on skills, Reedy? Like, what's your intent in going out there?
Well, so never been around long enough to know everything, and those guys, their students have had quite a bit of success. So, hey, I'm just passing into Oklahoma now. Hang on a sec, fuckers. Anyway, um, they've had a lot of success with their students, so they've got some secret sauce. I'd like to know what it is, and I mean, I could spend the whole weekend if I just learned one thing. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, that's one thing, and I might be talking outside of school here because I've never shot an official PRS event in the States, only in Australia. But the boys from Oklahoma, they know how to shoot in wind.
Oh yeah, they're real good with no two ways about it. And I'm not bad too, but it's like they got something going on with how they read their wind where they can get on that first target right away. And I might burn a couple trying to work out what the wind's really doing because it's all a guess. The bullet tells you what's really happening down there. And if you're smart, you'll get it on the first time it tells you. But sometimes it takes a couple of shots.
Yeah, do you know some of my best shots? Because I just personally, I like the ELR game, but my best shots have all been misses, Reedy. They've all been like I'll send the first one to try and send a spotter, and I'll see where the splash is, and then I will send another round, and I'm like a tenth out, and I'm like, I couldn't have done anything more for that bullet in the air. Like the wind's just picked up a mile, or the wind's changed, and so all of my best shots have all been misses.
Okay, well, my best shots hit the target, but good for you that you could take some joy in missing the target. I
Well,
don't.
okay. Put it this way. So I was shooting at some hopping deer, from about 1,600 yards away,
Wow.
and I sent I sent a 230 grain burger out of my 300 Win Mag at about 2950, and at the time I was still shooting those commie units MOA before I saw the light with MRAD, and
Okay.
I was something like a million. I was something like, I think it was 1.5 minutes right and probably about 2 minutes low. And I saw the splash. The hopping deer didn't move. I sent another round, and I was half a minute perfect vertical, and I was half a minute horizontal. And so from that distance, that range, I was super happy. Like, I'm like, damn, I couldn't have done anything more for that shot. I got up like off the gun and thought, wow, that was good.
No, mate, and that's good. You saw where it went. You made a correction. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, we got a miss. So I got a bike gang going past me now. Hey,
I love it. I think it makes for good content.
it's an army of one though. I don't know where he's off to.
An army of one.
Yeah. So and that's I think as a trick to the PRS game is to not take these misses personally. Take it as feedback. I mean, Dan Jarecki, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a fantastic shooter down here. Um, he's a pilot by trade and a very good one. And he's unemotional about everything. He said, it's just feedback. It's almost boring to me. So I'm like, okay, I wish I could get bored with it. So, yeah, that's the hard thing. Don't be too hard on yourself when you miss the target.
I just like to know that I'm doing the best I can with the skill set that I have. That's why I would love to get down And I know that I will, once all the world opens back up and all this bullshit COVID stuff goes away, I will get down and see the boys at JTech, because shooting from obstacles would be another feather in my cap. It's something that I know is definitely a weakness in my shooting game.
Yep.
And if, like, at a one thing, if I could improve anything in my shooting game, it would be calling wind or reading wind. But the next thing would be shooting off of obstacles. And I know all of the boys from JTech have won their fair share of comps during the PRS, so they definitely know what they're doing.
They do, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think, like, because I'm a little rusty, I'm only shooting a couple of matches a year, but I've just got something that I'm missing, and let's see if they see it. So if I can pick up 1 tip this weekend, it's worth it to me.
So just on that, where we left part one, we'll call it, Reedy, was how did you get started in the discipline of PRS? And I think we had just gotten into the topic of FSP Russia or FPS Russia.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, as I said, that I was an avid golfer. I like to shoot. I had handguns and stuff like that, but I was a nut job golfer who lived right next to a golf course, and I golfed every day. And I went up there one day, and it was bankrupt, closed down, boarded up. So when the reality set in that we wouldn't have a golf course for a couple of years, I was cruising through YouTube, and I saw that crazy Russian, who we now know is really American, shoot a water jug at 1,000 meters with a rifle called the 338 Bad News Sniper. It was a semi-auto 338 Lapua. And that's when I'm like, that's what I'm going to learn to do right there. I'm going to learn how to do that.
And so with relatively novice, I guess, long-range experience, you then, if I remember last time, you did go and have some sort of coaching or training. I forget the gentleman's name that you said, but you did do that.
That's correct, yeah. Well, the first thing I did was I ran straight out and brought a Savage 338 Lapua Magnum, which was literally the biggest rifle purchasing error of my career. I brought it, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is so exciting. What about ammo? And they're like, oh, we don't have any ammo for it. So I had to hunt around to find the ammo, only to realise it was $5 a shot.
Yeah.
So, and it was horrible. But I trained with a guy called Jay Ruby, and he's a local guy, and he got me squared away. Just the basics. I mean, I'd loaded my own 308 ammo, and seeding depth, I had no clue. Different brass, no clue about that. Yeah, so I pretty much used his rifle the whole time, and yeah, he started me on the path correctly. So for people out there that are just trying to wing it off of Google or Sniper Hide, drop it. Find someone who is a good shooter and go spend some money and train with them. It's worth it.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more with that recommendation. I mean, I did the hard yards. I did as much as I could. I'm going to be honest, that the first thing, and maybe this is just my personality, it just gels with ELR. I like it. I really do. When I'm talking to people outside of the industry, I liken it very much to golf. You were trying to get something very small with a lot of mechanics in between your swing, say like your backswing and then your front swing, and then hitting the ball. You're trying to get something very small, exactly where you want it to go. And yep. I liken it. It's you against yourself, or it's you against the environment, and that just gels with me. And my path started, like, I had my first rifle was a Tikka Hunter with a walnut stock in 3006 with a Leopold VX2 scope, like a 4x12 basic duplex. And it wasn't until I saw the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, and he's talking to Danny Glover about, do you know, like, all the environmentals, density, altitude, humidity, spin drift, Coriolis effect, all affects the shot. And I'm like, what are these things? Honestly, I thought, what are these things that he's all talking about? And I used to think when you had a scope with external turrets that was just for F-class shooting. That was just for target shooting. And so it wasn't until I watched that movie and I started doing my own individual research that you can get so far on YouTube, but going out with someone and having them show you exactly the body position and the posture you need to have and exactly how things feel, I think is a far better use of time and money than it is trying to YouTube information, because the problem with YouTube is that there's no checks and balances of information on there. And so when you're looking at that, you don't know if they're just a bullshitter, keyboard warrior that's, Googled some stuff and read some sniper hide articles, or whether they're actual people. Like, if I had to recommend, I would say go and do a course like JTech or something like that, which is exactly what you did.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean that there's all my reloading mistakes came from the internet in the early days. Just horrible, stupid stuff. And from Dylan themselves at my first press, the way they were teaching people to reload, what a joke. Yeah, if you go get a training with someone who knows what the hell they're doing, qualify it, and let the target do the talking. If they know what's going on, they're going to hit the target. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I remember when I first started reloading, I went and did an introductory course with someone in my local area that was a trusted source. And then, at that PRS event where you and I met and I got talking to Wade in between him ROing, man, what that guy doesn't know about shooting, Wade Studeville, what he doesn't know about shooting really isn't worth knowing. And then he started telling me all these other things about seating depth and batching brass. And then that led me in a whole other direction. Like, I'd like to think that when I was reloading a hunter's quality ammunition. And then I got talking with Wade, and then I started to putting together this precision, a quality, precision quality ammunition. And that's just through him and I having a conversation.
Yeah. He's Wade. I tell you what, Wade did my first 2 custom builds in the PRS game, and there's just no question. They shot. I couldn't have been happier, and it was money well spent. So when you bump into a guy like him, you've got to stick to his side, because they'll never steer you in the wrong direction.
They're so humble as well. They're so humble and willing to part knowledge for nothing more than just for you to upskill yourself.
That is a good thing about our sport. There's a lot of people that they don't care. I mean, me, I would rather have someone beat me with them helping me, with me helping them, sorry, so that they were at their best when they did it, rather than me not give them a good win call or give them some bad advice on what bag they should use. I think the PRS is a little different to other sports in that regard.
That's one of the things that I was super surprised with, that when Greg and I first landed and we got to the heat stroke and we were just walking around, and besides, all what I thought, well, they were big trucks then, compared to Australian utes, but just the camaraderie between the shooters, like, if someone takes a spare rifle and someone's firing pin breaks or their firing mechanism isn't working, someone's always willing to say, "Hey, I've got another rifle that you can use," or I've got this equipment if you need it. Like, I was totally blown away that people were basically giving the shirt off their back to help their competitors against themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it is a good feeling to be able to help people when their stuff goes down, and I found myself in the habit of taking extra stuff in case it happens. My nickname used to be Paul Mart, because, that's broken. Go see Paul Mart. He'll help you.
Paul Mart.
Typically, I'd had the part. So anyway.
So after FSP Russia, and after you got some training and some tutorage, you then started shooting PRS events?
Yeah, I started. The first trainings were early 2013, say January, I think. And I started shooting club matches in March, I think. So I just stuck with club matches in 2013 and tried a 2-day event in 2014, which was a rifles only, the Bushnell Bash, and it was an ass whooping. It was pretty discouraging, really, but it was a lot of fun.
And as you build up, like, would you say when you and I met in 2016, you were sort of at your pinnacle of shooting in the PRS nationally?
Yeah, I'd say so. 2016 and 2017 were definitely my best years. I was really focused, and I was just shooting 7 days a week. So, you want to get good at something, just do a lot of it. You can't help but have some good stuff rub off on you.
Yeah, because I remember reading articles or even Facebook posts that you had written even about your reloading, and I was using that method until Scott Satterlee's method, until he published his method. Yeah, but I guess I use a combination between what you published and whether you took all the good stuff from several people that you spoke to, but between your method and Scott Satterlee's method, yeah, I use that religiously now.
Yeah, and you know what? I saw that Scott Satterlee deal, and I like Scott. He's a great guy and a great shooter. And I went, I'm going to try a bit of that myself. So I actually use his method to go work out what speed I want to run.
Yeah.
And you just never know. Just let it rub off on you, and if it works in the real world, we'll adopt it. Why would you change it?
What were your best results? Like, you had some match wins?
I had a PRS match win, a lot of club match wins, but that's not really the same thing. But I had a PRS win. I won. It's shrouded in controversy, of course, because I won the Outback Open that was run by Geordie, an Australian, at the Outback range, and I went to the match in my Subaru Outback. So it was like a big setup, really.
You couldn't have written the script any better.
The kid from the Outback, went, it was pretty weird. So, but I shot great at that match, and I shot an honest match, and I walked out there with the trophy. But the reality is, Jake Vibbett beat me at that match. He hit more targets than I did.
No way.
Yeah, so he got a partial stage DQ because it was a lefty-righty stage where you switched, and you had to shoot strong side, then you went to weak side, but he didn't use weak side trigger finger, and he lost 4 shots. And I beat him by 2 when they took the 4 away. So I'm like, I still need to get a real win under my belt. I'll keep the trophy, but really he outshot me at the match.
So he got a partial stage DQ because when he was shooting weak hand, he didn't use his weak hand to pull the trigger. He used his strong hand to pull the.
Correct, and the match director specifically said to be careful, and the match book specifically said Jake must have been taking a piss when they said that because he forgot. But the ROs were sticklers for it, and they nabbed him at the end. They just said, sorry, the last 4 didn't count. Used the wrong trigger finger.
Wow, that's rough. That's a rough way to win.
Yeah, but he's had plenty of wins. Screw him. Don't worry about him.
Well, he has. Like, I know who Jake Vibbett is, so that must mean he's doing something right because, like, I'm just a little old Aussie lad living in the fridge of the United States, and I've heard that name, so he must be doing all right.
No, he's a great bloke and a great shooter, that's for sure.
Now, when we left part 1 as well, I had mentioned to you I'm setting a precedent where I'm going to name as best as I can, I'm going to name every episode. And I called you Boy from the Bush, and you said you don't know how funny that is because you said you met Lee Kernaghan.
Yeah, that's right. So I roadied for a band called Stock Standard, and they supported a Midnight Oil tribute band in How Long? It's How Long, I think it is. It's down near Victorian border. And we were getting the pizza after the gig, and they knew Lee Kernaghan. He turns over, like, hey, boys, listen to this song. We all sat in his car, and he played The Boys from the Bush Are Back in Town before it was ever released. They just recorded it the day before.
That's crazy. I'll be honest, I was geeking out about that. I've recently found an affinity for country music, and he's definitely my favourite Australian artist. So I found that quite interesting.
Well, mate, I remember being at a Slim Dusty gig where Keith Urban was the support act. How about that?
Wow. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Slim, when it comes to Australian country, this is just my personal opinion, Slim is the man. Like, how many people, all of these people, Lee Kernaghan, and that all probably were inspired by Slim Dusty, and the fact that you saw Slim and Keith Urban was an up-and-coming Australian country artist at the time.
Yeah, but, I mean, he had no respect because the oldie said he's too young to know country. Well, America's got a different story about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I mean, the people in the country just thought he was just some young guy. No one really knew who he was. And it was only about 2 or 3 years after I saw him that he came over to America to make his way. How's that for a success story? Gets here, sleeps on couches. A year later is Country and Western Musician of the Year. How about that?
In America, in like a country that wasn't his birth. So
Yeah, exactly. No one knew who he was. And within 1 year, and Australia didn't really embrace him like they should have.
Yeah.
They did later, but he was just considered too young to be a serious country and Western star.
I didn't know that. There you go.
I'm just talking about people's opinions in the circles I was in, and I'm like, I don't know, he's pretty good on guitar. You've seen that guy play, he's freaking good.
Now, one of the things I'm interested in about you, Paul, is with Miss Reid, you got her into PRS shooting.
Right. Well, it's not like I had a choice in that. She knew I was shooting from Facebook, and she says, teach me. I'm like, okay. I actually sent, because we were dating by long distance. She lived in Rochester Hills in Michigan at the time. So every 2 weeks, I'd fly to see her, and then 2 weeks later, she'd come and see me.
Yep.
Yeah, I set a rifle up for her in 223, and I sent it to Michigan, mailed it to her house. So she had it so she could dry fire, and I had it all set up so she could train in her house and go to a local range and shoot. And then 6 months later, she ended up moving to Texas with me. So we started training together a lot. And she did get good at it, but her work doesn't give her enough time to practice. So right now she's like, she just wants to go to the match and shoot. So, but technically she's a great little shooter. She really is. I think girls have a little advantage on guys if they can keep their mental state under control. Yeah, I think technically they can be better shooters.
Did Heather not win like best female at one of the matches you guys shot? Like she
did.
Yeah, she was like the highest ranked female in the field of like males.
She did, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was killing it, to be honest with you. And what I found personally, like, and I'm just, once again, I liken shooting to golf in the sense that I was playing a lot of golf with my brother, but I was playing golf badly, and I developed all these bad habits, and it wasn't until I wanted to get better and I started getting lessons from a pro, which he basically had to try to undo all of these bad habits that I had adopted just through swinging a club. And so the fact that Heather was getting good training from the get-go, I feel is totally necessary to prevent people from getting bad habits.
You're right. She was fortunate to come in with a guy with my knowledge straight off the bat, and she didn't question anything. She had no bad habits, trusted me completely, did exactly what she was told. She started to get good. Well, how about that? That's weird. I mean, and a lot of guys that start shooting now have been shooting for a year. Not taking anything away from them, but us guys back in the early days, we paid the price for the bags and stuff we were using in a different method.
Yep.
So those guys walk into all that knowledge. It took a couple of years for us to get that under our belts and work out what it worked. I mean, the game changer, the game changer, actually really was. I can't believe how good that bag worked. And the other variations of that bag, like the solo sack was the original. Once we started using bags with sand in them, I'm like, holy shit, why were we doing this 2 years ago?
Yeah, I remember the first sort of quote-unquote PRS event we shot in Australia, well, I shot in Adelaide, was with George Crisp, who you boarded for a while, and he was the first guy that I saw have bags, like supportive bags either for his rifle or for his body posture. And now he sort of came second in that match, and I think he was very unlucky. He was shooting, like, basically that match, everyone they run what they brung. And Crispy was the only one that sort of, I think he was shooting either a 6 Creedmoor or a 6.5 Creedmoor at the time. I hadn't even heard of these calibers. It's what America was running at the time. So we're talking sort of 2016. And I remember I was running a 300 Win Mag, and there was like 3 other people or 4 other people that were all running that. But
I saw a bit of that when I was there too. I'm like, y'all need to get 6 BRs. What are you doing with that 300 Win Mag?
yeah, I know. But talking about bags, Crispy was the first one I see. I'm like, what? Who is this guy? Like, this guy is shooting bags, and he's so much more stable, and he was absolutely slaying it. And to be honest, I don't know how he didn't win that event. I really don't know how he didn't win that match. Someone had just, Butters it was. Butters actually won that match with a 300 Win Mag, and AI in 300 Win Mag. So,
Holy shit. Shame on you, Crispy, letting the 300. But I know Butters is a good shooter too. So, man, what were they using if they weren't using bags?
we were just using like rice bags, like old, like, socks tied up with rice bags, or we were just shooting unsupported, or we were trying to use, our offhand to support. I mean, don't get me wrong, Butters is a very good shooter, and I think because Butters was running these events before the first sort of more organized events. So I wouldn't necessarily say shame on Crispy for losing, because Butters is a very experienced shooter when it comes to that practical side. But if Butters wasn't there, Crispy would have been well ahead of the field, like of everyone else.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, well, there you go. But nothing wrong with sand in a bloody old sock, as long as it does the job. But once you start getting a game changer and realising it actually fits perfectly on something and your rifle sits there, it's like, man, we were using Todd tack pads and stuff like that, but you put on your rifle and just rock around on the barricade.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know until a couple of years ago what free recoil was. I mean, so it's all these things like, once again, I think it plays back into your recommendation. Go and get some training from a credible or certified person, and just really accelerate your learning with all these small things. Like, I mean, a game changer's not filled with BBs now. Like, sand and rice, that's all outdated methods now,
No,
isn't it?
not true, buddy. Not
Oh,
true.
really?
I don't like. You can get the beads; they're a lighter weight bag. I don't like the beads for anything but a rear support, because the beads roll on each other, so that creates
Okay.
a little bit of movement. We're still using sand-filled bags. In fact, it's all I'll use on the barricade. I don't care if it weighs 20 pounds. That's the bag I'm using.
Fair enough, Reedy. Fair enough. So, living down in Texas, have you and Heather done heli bacon?
No,
You haven't done
no,
it? What?
we
And you're
haven't.
in the
But,
industry. You should.
oh, I know, yeah, and I buy crashed helicopters, and a lot of them crash hunting hogs. So,
Really?
um, yeah, I mean, it depends what helicopter is. It is, and how much experience the pilot has. Typically very safe, but I see people flying around in underpowered piston helicopters, and they get into trouble.
Wow.
Game over. But everyone typically walks away if you can.
Yep.
But so the short answer is no, because I haven't found someone I trust to fly with.
Fair, fair enough, Reedy. No, it's
Yeah,
it's definitely on my to-do list. I want to go down there. I want to get the M4s or the fully automatic ARs, and have the lasers and the nods out of the ATVs, and go shoot the 240s or whatever they are, or
yeah,
M16s from the side
yeah.
of the old Hilo. But on that, just between part one and when we're talking now, Reedy, I wanted to ask you. So back in the day with helicopters, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you would have a central rotor that was your lift, and then you would have that rear one that prevented the helicopter from like the helicopter frame or body turning around with the centripetal force of
Right, the anti-torque system.
the
Yeah.
anti-torque system. But I've
Yep.
noticed some of the more modern helos, they don't have that, or they don't need it. How does that work?
Well, you're talking about the ones that look like an enclosed fan. Is that what you're
Correct.
talking
Yes, the ones that have an enclosed fan. Yep.
about? Okay, that's called a fenestron, and that's mainly French aircraft.
Huh.
McDonnell Douglas has a NOTAR system where it's actually it's a huge fan that's inside the tail boom that blows air out air ducts. It's a pretty effective system. For me, I like the old tail rotor blades, and mate, just because you think they're modern doesn't mean they were built in the last 10 years.
Well, true that. True that. I'm just a nobody when it comes to that. But it's
I've
just
got I've got helicopters that people are like, I'm like, how old do you think this is? And they're like, man, this has got to be like 2 or 3 years old. And I'm like, no, this is from 1972. It just got painted.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So
most helicopters are quite old.
so with those helos that it looks like they've got those enclosed fan that's not turning, they do still have some anti-torque system that's preventing the frame or body from turning around the main rotor.
Oh, that is the anti-torque system. Those blades
Oh,
turn. Yeah, they turn inside there, and it varies the amount of wind or air that comes out of there that offsets the main rotor torque. Yeah,
well there you
yeah.
go.
You'll see them like on the Dolphins and stuff, like from Baywatch, as everyone knows, the aeromedical helicopters, the HC 145s. They've all got that system. It's good because it stops people from just walking into the tail rotor.
Well, that's true. I mean, if you've ever watched Indiana Jones, that's definitely a hazard of having one of those open tail rotor
I,
systems.
I, I've never seen it with my own eyes, but I did hear someone walk into a tail rotor when I was in Papua New Guinea. That was pretty sad.
Yeah, that would be. And if yeah, I could imagine it happening in one of those countries that probably had less importance placed on safety around those.
Yeah, well, the locals just don't know any better, so he was just trying to walk around the helicopter. Brr,
Yeah, that's.
game over.
So I'm curious to know how relaxed is it living in Texas, down in Texas there, Reedy?
It's pretty damn relaxed, mate. It's very similar to Australia in a lot of ways. I mean, city living aside, city people are high strung, but out in the country, it's like no one gives a shit. That's why I love going up to Oklahoma as well, as those guys are so laid back.
Yeah.
You get a check for a pulse with those guys. So, man, it feels like home in a lot of ways. It really does.
Except that you have a lot more freedom down there.
Hell yes, we do.
Well, in preparation for this, I did want to ask you a question, but I'm going to give you some fun facts. So there are three presidents that came out of Texas: Lyndon Johnson, George Bush Sr., George Bush Jr. There's been
Yep.
a number of famous Navy SEALs: Chris Kyle, Marcus Luttrell, Eric Christensen, Matthew Axelson. What is it about Texas that's producing these high caliber presidents or military? It's like they have no quit down there.
I got to say that as a guess, I think that Texas has a little different value system. People might grow up a little harder here, and the babies come out of the womb with a six-shooter in their hand. So,
I'd believe that too. America,
and,
home of the six-shooter.
the babies walk out with a six-shooter, and the doctor hands them bullets. That's it.
I'd believe that as well. But it's just, is it a harder life? Because there's a lot of ranches in Texas. Like, Texas is huge, isn't it? Like, we were talking in part one about it being about the size of WA, but probably more inhabited.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I can go drive drive to a match in Mississippi, and it's closer than the one at Rifles Only in Texas.
Yeah, that's crazy. And what was it? You're covering like 3 or 4 states compared to just driving in one.
Yeah, exactly. Louisiana, a little bit of Alabama, and then the Mississippi. So, yeah, and Texas is like you just sit there for 7.5 hours to get to Rifles Only. And
Yeah.
I could be at that range in Mississippi in about 6.5.
Wow. I've been told it's a very big place. Is okay, so being a bit of a Yellowstone fanboy, which I am, is the Four Sixes a real ranch down there? Do you know, Reedy?
I know it is a real ranch. You know
It,
how I know that?
because you've probably recovered a crashed helicopter from the property.
No, that's not true. A good friend of mine who is in the helicopter industry, her first name is Lou. Her son is a Texas Ranger, the law enforcement version.
Oh, that's cool as fuck.
And his name is Wayne. And so I had these guys in for the Heli Expo from Australia, and we went down to San Antonio and did the River Walk and the Alamo. And Lou had found out we were heading back to Dallas. She said, I'm going to arrange for a personal tour of the Texas Rangers Museum in Waco for you guys.
That's cool.
So, and we got to see pictures of all the Rangers, the get-togethers at that Quad 6 Ranch. It was frigging impressive. The heritage of that organisation is amazing. It was great. And I highly recommend go to that museum.
So, with maybe perhaps your limited knowledge but far superior knowledge to me, what are the Texas Rangers? Because I've heard of them only because of the great 1980s, 1990s movies, Lone Wolf McQuade, that starred Chuck Norris. But they're a real hardcore law enforcement group, are they not?
Yeah, they're a bunch of badasses. They really are. So people need to Google it to get the real facts. But here's my understanding, and that's the modern day Texas Rangers in all different cities. There's about 100 of them around Texas. They can do any type of law enforcement, any investigation, and they're there to help the smaller counties that like have never had a murder or have never had someone embezzle from the bank or stuff. They'll go in and assist with those things. And when the shit gets real, they'll group up and they'll go on behalf of the Texas governor and take care of some stuff. So they're pretty impressive. They're a fix-all, basically, for law enforcement anywhere in Texas. They can go there and take care of stuff that other police departments might not be equipped to.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's really amazing.
Yeah, and when you study the history on where they came from, and they basically cut a deal with Mexico, who couldn't handle the Indians at the time were killing all the Mexicans. They said, "Give us this bit of land." This is how I understand it. When Stephen F. Austin was organising things, and at the same time, the Colt revolver came out. So the Rangers are like, "Yeah, let's go get them, get the Indians." The Indians were used to everyone having a single shotgun, right?
Yep.
So they let one shot off, and then the Indians would jump out and they go, "Okay, boys, we got 5 more."
And obviously just took care of business.
Yeah, so they'd have 5 Rangers going in and cleaning out 50 Indians. It was pretty. It's not that I like the fact that a bunch of Indians got killed, but I mean, in a war zone, which that's what it was back then. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool history. The way the organisation came out, and when you study stuff about Texas and the Alamo and what happened at San Jacinto, I mean, it just speaks volume about the kind of people that come out of Texas based on the history of the place.
Yeah, it really does seem like they are in the highest regard of stand-up people that, come out of like the United States. I'm not saying that they're the only ones, but they really are a high caliber of people with values and beliefs.
Right, and the guys back then they felt an obligation to go and put themselves at great risk just because they're Texans and they cared about the place. It's like, I mean, and when I didn't know much about the Battle of San Jacinto, which was basically when Texans got even with the Mexicans over the Alamo. I mean, they only lost, I think, 9 people, and the Mexicans lost 600.
Wow.
Pretty good numbers. Well done, Texas.
That's very good numbers, especially if you're on the Texas side. So,
yeah.
Now, Reedy, is there any truth to everything is bigger in Texas?
Yeah, it's true. I've met some of the biggest dickheads here. Yep. And some of the best people here as well. So it's a little bit true. Might have been bigger back in the day, but I think it's pretty much as big as everywhere else.
So, Reedy, what's the coolest thing about living in Texas?
Well, that's an easy one. It's run by Republicans.
Well, there you go. That is very true. Very, very true.
And we love Donald Trump. We want him back as a president.
Well, here, I've had very interesting discussions with people about Donald Trump. I loved his slogan, and I found it really interesting talking with Canadians up here about Donald Trump, which they were very quick to get triggered and butthurt by him and some of the policies and sanctions that he made that ended up affecting Canadians. And because I didn't really have any skin in the game, I would say to them, but any head of state that is voted in by the people, it's their responsibility to look after their country and what's in the best interest of their country. And I think for the best part, Donald Trump tried to do that, especially for America. And so if he imposed some sanctions on dairy for Canadian milk going down to the States, I didn't really have an issue with that because his job was to to make America great again.
Right, and I mean that was about American jobs, not Canadians. Sorry about that.
No,
Maybe Canadian government needs to. No, I know, but I mean you got to look at it from both sides. And it's interesting that you brought it up like that because when he was passing those sort of sanctions and putting tariffs and taxes on things, I didn't think about the other side of the fence, how it would affect people on the other side. So that's interesting. But look at what he did for manufacturing and stuff like that. When companies like Ford tried to move it down to Mexico, how did he react to that? Were you keeping track of that?
Yeah, I did, because didn't he stopped that because do you know what? I really think that, what I like about Donald Trump is that he was a businessman, and he was a businessman without all the political ties. And so he really could, in my personal opinion, and I'm a nobody, but he just cut through all the bullshit.
Right, he was uncorruptible. He already was a billionaire. You couldn't buy him.
Well,
he already hated half the people. Like anyone who's a 47-year politician and already hasn't fixed stuff, don't tell me you're going to fix stuff just because you're president. Jeez.
No, like 100%. I mean, he's one of, I think, the only, or there'd be less than a handful of presidents that by their personal wealth went down during the time that they were the POTUS. So I really don't understand. Like, if you look at all these other career politicians whose personal wealth has gone up, those are the people that I think need to be investigated, and their tax returns need to be made public. Like, you have people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer blaming Ronald Reagan back in the day for all the problems that the United States has, and then they were blaming frickin' Trump. And they're the ones that have been in office the longest.
Well, and that's all they did, was they just blamed everybody else. But like when I got to hear a speech from Biden about how he's gonna end wage inequality and just other bullshit that he wants to end, it's about time, man. Like, do people forget he was vice president for 8 years and he didn't do shit to change anything?
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, people are stupid. It's just really worrisome. Yeah, didn't do jack shit 8 years, and he's talking about now. Come on, man, it's time to fix these things up. And I'm like, dude, you were vice president for 8 years. You didn't do anything to address wage inequality. Anything. All the problems that he's trying to fix, that his platform is. Why wasn't he held accountable for doing nothing about it when he was vice president? I mean,
go on.
People are stupid. Where did critical thinking go to? Why can't you just? People just believe whatever he says or whatever they see on the news. It's concerning.
It certainly is. I don't think there's any difference with the leadership between the US and Canada right now. The leadership of Canada, I don't know what they're doing. They are spruiking all of this bullshit, and the standard sort of Joe Citizen Canadian are lapping it up here. And I agree with you, Reid. That's a hugely valid comment. Where did critical thinking go?
Man, it's very confusing. And what is really bothersome now is that you look at all the democratically run states and cities around America that just got hammered with riots and ridiculous COVID restrictions, and the fact that the towns are being overtaken by homeless people. And I mean, there is a place for homeless people, but there's laws to keep them, away from neighbourhoods and highways. And I went through Santa Monica a year ago. I'm like, what has happened to this place?
Yeah,
it's crazy, and that's what Biden's doing to the entire country.
Homeless is really prolific here in Vancouver. It really is. There's East Hastings is horrible. It's a street downtown, and it is all homeless or severely underprivileged people where they have taken over parks with tents, and it's really bad. And I really don't know what the provincial government or even the federal government are doing for all of this. The programs in Australia are far superior than up here in Canada.
Well, and it worries me, all this political correctness. I mean, I feel for homeless people. I've given them money on the street. But as a government, stop sending frigging money to countries that hate us and go build some places for these people to live. Teach them some skills. Get them in the workforce.
one of the biggest cardinal sins, I think, and I'm going to, the Australian, the United States and Canadian government is, I don't think they do anywhere near enough to take care of their veterans that have fought for the rights and freedoms for the average Joe citizen of those countries. I don't think the governments are doing anywhere near enough for veterans.
Mate, you are 100% correct, and it just pisses me off to watch them shooting all this money over to the Ukraine. Billions and billions of dollars going to the Ukraine, and they need help. But, man, you can't do that shit while you've got US vets just living on the street and lined up around the corner to see a doctor, the basic services that they're entitled to because of the service they gave this country. Put billions of dollars into that shit and not blink to do it. How can they pass a bill in a couple of days to send billions of dollars to a country like Ukraine?
I don't know, Reedy. I agree with you, brother. I really agree with you, mate.
You never know. Maybe it's got something to do with Hunter Biden and the big guy getting millions of backhanders out of the country. I don't know. Maybe.
I have no idea, and it's funny that you have all these non-critical thinking people telling the critical thinkers that they're tin hat or tin foil hat wearing people, and you know I've there's an actual thing that happened to me. So we were having dinner with the kids, and we were talking about Trump, or I was talking about Trump, and I had Bake Boss pipe up how she doesn't like him. And so I was really curious about, like, I loved him, and he wasn't even my president or prime minister. I thought he was doing as good a job as any president, probably a lot more than before him was doing for the country to get it back on track. And she said, oh, because he put kids in cages. And I'm like, I was like, do you actually know that was the Obama administration that put children in cages? And do you know why they did that? And she was like, no. And I was like, because there were a lot of Mexican drug cartels that were people trafficking and sex trafficking and having people go across the border that they had, taken away from their families. And that's why they had to put them, detain them in cages so they could investigate of who the cartels were and who were these innocent people caught up in this. And then and then she was like, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, well, where did you hear that he put people in cages? Oh, I heard it from TikTok. So once again, it's not fucking regulated. Like, TikTok or YouTube's just not regulated. We have all these triggered fact checkers that aren't even fact checking. It depends on the agenda there or the narrative they're trying to push. And once again, coming back to your critical thinking, we need younger people critically thinking, questioning everything, questioning the government, questioning the parents, questioning your teachers.
And mate, there's information that's available from very qualified people about people's health decisions nowadays, and they're instantly dismissing anything they see because a website called factcheck.org says that's not true. I mean, do some research, work out who owns that website, and what narrative they're pushing, because you might be surprised. It could be Democrat, just saying all of them are owned by Democrat organizations.
I agree. It's crazy. We're in crazy times, like unheard of times, like right now.
Yep.
So
well, they tried this shit in the 80s and it worked. It's called mind control.
Yep.
Anyway, we won't get too far into conspiracies, but I mean, they censor the hell out of everything so you can't see it. There's only one reason they do that. Because they don't want you to know it's true.
Yeah, or they got stuff to hide.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no different with Joe Rogan. He was just trying to get to the bottom of things and expose some truths. And then, the left was so quickly to try to shoot him down and undermine him, but yet they weren't his opinions. He was actually talking to qualified professionals about it. So I don't...
He's dispelling rumors or qualifying them as, they're not conspiracy theories. They're spoiler alerts. It's true.
Absolutely. I like that term. He was qualifying them. Absolutely, Reedy. He was qualifying them.
Yeah. Anyway, but his current popularity speaks a lot about people are waking up out there. That's for sure.
Well, I hope that it is. I mean, if you want to get on board with another good person, I like Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. I like that he's a very knowledgeable person and he researches topics and he's just trying to, create conversations with people. That's it. But yet,
Yep.
the left are so triggered by him because he's saying that there is only two genders biologically, which there is. So
It's just facts, guys.
it's just facts.
You don't rewrite the book. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, what's shocking to me right now, and it's kind of like when I hear about people coming from Muslim countries because their countries like torn by warfare and they're moving here. Now they want to bring in Sharia law and their own religious systems that brought about the destruction of their own country. They're trying to bring it here. I'm like, why would you do that? Don't you realize you're going to create the same situations here that you just tried to left? And we've got Californians coming to Texas because California is so jacked up and horrible to live in, and they're trying to vote Democrats. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? Don't you get it? They ruined that state. Don't come here and do that.
Well, just on that, Reedy, do you know what I don't understand? And I'm an immigrant to Canada. If you move from your country of birth to another country and you want to reside there as a permanent resident or citizen, I think it's your duty and responsibility to assimilate to that country's values and beliefs, not try to enforce your own into that country so we can't say Merry Christmas anymore.
100%. It's shocking that politicians entertain it, to be honest.
Oh, I agree. I am trying the very best that I can to assimilate 100% into Canada and whatever the values and beliefs are of this country, because I've chosen to reside here, is what I'm going to adopt. I'm not trying to change the winter sport from hockey to ice fishing or whatever the case is. If this is what the forefathers of this country decided, then so be it. But what I don't like is when the country leaders are being dictators and they're just taking it upon themselves to change or mandate things that are in the best interest of them and not in the best interest of Joe Citizen Canada.
Right, 100% agree, mate. I mean, you're moving to a new value system, the
Correct.
beliefs of the country you're going, and you need to adopt it, or you need to pack your shit up and get the fuck out of there and go somewhere else.
100%, Reedy. What about? I always thought one of the coolest things is a tiger. You can own a tiger down there just in your backyard.
Yeah. Apparently that's true. Yeah, you can have a tiger.
What's the weirdest thing that you've seen in Texas, Reedy?
Okay, so the weirdest thing I have seen is a Mexican. I'm not trying to be racist. He's probably a Texan, but a Mexican on the back of a horse ordering Whataburger at a drive-through window. And no one thought that was a big deal but me. I'm like, he's on a friggin' horse.
That's epic. He's on a horse in the drive-through.
Yep, and he had the big hat on and everything. This is a tiny little town, and he's just, I got my horse. That's all I got. I'm going to the drive-through.
That is epic. That really is epic. What's the weirdest food down there? I've read some things that they have weird food in Texas that's obviously iconic to Texas.
The weirdest I've ever seen, and I tried, was at the Texas State Fair, and it was deep fried Coke.
Coke the drink.
Yeah. So you ever had like those deep fried ice cream balls at a Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, I've had deep fried ice cream. I've had deep fried Mars bars, but deep fried Coke?
Yeah.
How did how the fuck do they do that?
They put it in there and they deep fry it. By the time it comes out, you bite top off it, kind of drink it. It wasn't bad, really.
Jesus, take the wheel. That is one of the most craziest things I've ever heard. Like, wow.
That is a big deal at the Texas State Fair to kind of, what else can we deep fry this year? So it's quite a competition, and they win. Deep fried Coke. I didn't see that coming. Good job, guys.
Getting back to Paul Reid,
yes,
you really give back to your community, not only at shooting competitions, but especially your hometown. What do you do down there every year at the golf club, Paul?
Well, as a kid that grew up in a little country town, I think a big part of who I became as an adult is the kid that used to get slapped up the back of the head at the golf course while I was learning to play golf, learning things like, you don't cheat. I never really was a cheater, but, I was slow or I mucked around. And I think I learned some valuable lessons being manhandled a bit as a kid on the golf course, trying to stay within the rules of golf. And my parents did a great job, but it really does help to have it reinforced by other adults. So what I do is there was only a couple of junior golfers, probably 12, 15 when I was a kid, and we had no resources. So I could see that they had a small group of kids that they were teaching golf to when I was home, I think in 2000. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you guys $1,000 a year to help you, buy some equipment for these kids so you can get some bigger stuff going for them. And that's grown into 2,000 a year, and they've got 40 kids. It's all run by Jeanette Harris down there in Cooters, beautiful lady, and she's so hard on those kids. It's great. Just no bullshit, nothing unfair. There's no bullshit from her. And the kids love her. They love her. They respect her. They love golf. And it could be any sport, but it's not. It's golf, because golf is the biggest individual challenge on the planet when it comes to sports. I mean, you're on your own.
Yeah.
You're judged on your own, typically. So, I just love it. I've given them almost $30,000, and it's just great to go home and see all these kids that know me. I have no clue who these kids are. So it's good to make a little difference to those guys.
That's awesome. I see those posts yearly. We're friends on Facebook, so I really enjoy seeing them. I saw that. I think they do you a PAV every year.
Yeah, Jeanette does. She goes because I'm there around about my birthday, so I go down to the presentations, which are in mid-December sometime, and they basically have a presentation and a little bit of a mini birthday party. Have a sausage sizzle and a couple of soft drinks with the kids, and she'll take them all out, line them all up across the fairway, and they all hit golf balls.
That's awesome. Now I got to know, what's your snag and bread configuration?
All right. Well, I won't eat bread without butter on it, which America typically does. That's annoying. So it's got to have butter on it, skinny sausages, and a bit of sauce on top, and we're good. That's it.
No onions?
Nah. I'll do onions if they're around, but I'm too impatient to wait for them to cook. So I'm like, just give it to me.
No, fair enough. All right. So I've only got one last thing to discuss with you, Reedy. Would you ever go back and live in Australia?
Absolutely. But my perfect plan for my retirement is to have a house in Australia and a house right here in Texas and never see another winter ever again.
That's a pretty damn good plan.
Yeah. So I have the ability to make that happen. So that's what I'm angling towards. It. And I do love Texas, maybe Florida too. But just the fact that the seasons are directly opposite, it'd be great just to never see it. Just live the rest of your life in spring and summer. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, you just have a yearly tan.
That's it. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
All right, Mr. Reid, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversations that we've had. It's a pity that Dusty wasn't able to make it, because I would have liked to have had the Australian dominance with him there, and I'm sure that he would have enjoyed it as well. I'm sure it would have been interesting for him to hear the difference between the two accents, even though we come from the same country in different eras. But
no worries. Well, hey, it's been a privilege. I appreciate you thinking of me. Anything else, give me a yell. I'll be here.
I certainly will. Good luck with the training with the JTech boys. I'm sure you're going to come out a better shooter from it. And in the coming months, when everything opens up, I'm going to fly my ass down to Texas, and we're going to go and do a shoot. And I need to fulfill my dream of doing heli bacon. So,
well, I could help with both those things. I'll have a rifle ready for you. Don't worry.
That's awesome. Thanks, Reedy. You take care, brother.
On you, mate.
See you, buddy. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.